Hi everyone, welcome back. In this update we've added a new little section here called OSC Camera. If you go into OSC Blueprints, OSC Camera, here you'll find TG Cam System, which contains 4 new actors which each have a very distinct purpose for this system, and they all work together. And in this video I'm going to show you how to use them. The Ableton project has also been updated with a new track number 8, called Camera Midi, and it is same as all the other Midi tracks. It contains a little Midi sender, and it's a dummy track in the sense that it doesn't actually send audio. It only sends MIDI information through this little clip here, and it sends it over 3 octaves, and each octave has a different purpose in this camera system. I'm going to show you this demonstrate it right now. First I'm going to hit play here in Unreal to show you what's going on. I'm going to split my screen 2 ways so you can see both Unreal and Ableton. Just going to close this down. I'm going to hit play in Ableton, and hopefully you'll see the camera system working, and after that I'll explain to you how to use it and how to set it up from scratch. It's a little complex to set up at first, but once it's up and running it's incredibly flexible, and that's the reason I've put it together the way it is now. So let's hit play and see what happens. Cool. That's the camera system. It's been lifted from another project of my own, but can now be used by you guys as well. To begin with, I'm going to just set up a new level and just completely initialize this this camera system so that you can follow along and see why things do certain things. There's a new level as well called Cam System Demo level, which is essentially just a copy of the original demo level, but with the camera system in it. So I'm going to copy the original level again and then set that up again from scratch. I'm going to call it Cam Tutorial. Here we have the basic level as we all know it at this point, and I'm going to go into the camera system folder here called OSC Blueprints, OSC Camera, TG Camera System. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a camera director. So the camera director doesn't actually do anything visual, but it is very useful. It looks at all the cameras and sticks them in an array, which you can manually put all the cameras in an array. By default, it sets the view to the first active camera. It needs to reference the OSC router, as with any OSC actor that we've created. So I'm gonna, in the OSC router ref 12 down here, I'm gonna look for the OSC router that's in the scene, and it needs a look at target. Now I've created another object here called look at object, and that's essentially just a little guy that flies around. It's also invisible. It's also an invisible object that flies from target to target and tells the cameras are told to look at that. So the camera director has now that the look at target has been put in the scene, the camera director can reference it. So I'm going to go at the look at target thing here and grab the look at object. Camera channel is left at 8 by default, same channel as it is on the MIDI sender in Ableton. And then we have the camera array, which needs cameras. So let's throw in some cameras. I'm just going to do 2 for the purpose of this tutorial, but you can add up to, well, as it is stand now, you can add up to 12 cameras, 0 through 11. As with everything in Unreal, everything starts counting at 0 in most cases anyway. And that same thing goes for MIDI notes. So the reason it's 11 cameras is 12 cameras is that there are 12 notes playable notes in an octave. That way you can have it correspond with the exact notes in an octave in Ableton. So we've got our first camera in here. I'm going to go into enable look at tracking right away and choose the look at actor object. So that's that for that camera. I'm going to create one more, but before I do that, I'm going to create an empty actor to parent it to so I can have it spin around. So the empty actor, just for the sake of keeping things organized, I'm going to call a rotator. Then I'm going to copy the camera, and camera 2 I'm going to stick inside of rotator and initialize the position and rotation of, if it allows me to. Of course, I'm going to turn off lookup tracking for a sec, clear that. Now I can initialize the rotation. Yeah. And then I'm going to move the camera back and up relative to the position of the rotator. I'm also going to initialize it to 0. So now the camera is parented to that rotator, and the rotator I'm going to add a component to called rotating movement. And I'm going to set it to, say, 25 in the Z to allow it to turn around. So now it should just constantly move around while the level is playing. And the camera, as with the other one, I'm going to set enable look at tracking again and look for my look at object, which is now been selected. Excellent. So look at object needs a bunch of targets. So I've created these target objects here, which we can also drag into the scene. So I'm going to put one right there. And these are essentially all the points that you can tell cameras to look at. So this is target 1, or target 0 in this case, target 2, target 1 in this case, the third target, and the fourth target I'm going to put up in the middle there. And I'm going to create one more, which I'm just going to put somewhere. And I've created these targets. I mean, essentially you can tell the look at object to target any kind of object. It doesn't necessarily have to be a target, but these targets are kind of useful because they've got a little target billboard on there, and you can also set them to parent to a certain object, which is very useful if you want an object to move around. But I mean, it can be useful for that, and it's also useful because you can tell multiple cameras to switch between them. It's just good to have kind of fixed target positions. Like sometimes you'd want something to just stand somewhere and somewhere between two objects, and it's good to have some kind of arbitrary target guy. But of course you can just grab any old thing to tell the look at object to follow. And from the parent here I'm going to choose random position. So now that little target's just going to follow the random position around. In the look at object, in this target array, I can select my targets. I'm going to just select them numerically. So 0 goes to 0. 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 2, 3 is target 3, and 4 is target 4. Excellent. The router reference in look at object also needs to be selected, which I quite often forget, so bears repeating. Anytime there's an OSC type object that has a router reference, what we mean by that is it needs to reference the OSC router. Camera channel is 8, same as with the camera director. And now we should be good to go. We've got two cameras. We've got the rotator camera, and we've got this primary camera here, which is standstill. And of course we can add more if we wanted to. And of course I forgot, inside of camera director, this is the last thing we're going to do before we give this a test run. We got to add our cameras into this array, because this is the array of cameras that the camera director knows to switch between. So the two cameras have been referenced now, and as with the look at object, there's an array of 12 objects because those 12 objects correspond with a note in a Midi note in Ableton. So in the camera Midi track here, I'm going to create a new clip. I'm just going to duplicate this one down, and I'm going to remove all the notes. So this is an 8-bar loop, and we've got two cameras, and we want to switch between those two cameras. So the camera octave is C-2 until B-2. And I'm going to switch between those two cameras kind of like back and forth slowly. So here's the first static camera. The second note's going to trigger the rotating camera, back to the first one, and back to the rotating one. Those are the two cameras we have right now, so there's no point in using any other notes at the moment. Then the look at object can zip from target to target with a speed that you give it here. So by default, it's the interpolation speed is set to 0.2. That stands for 0.2 seconds. You can bring it down a little bit if you want, but you can just leave it at default as well to see what that does. And then the lookout object can switch between targets also on MIDI notes. So the first 4 targets we created here were were set at the 3 little blocks on the ground. Target number 3 is located at the particle ball in the middle, and target number 4 follows the little red line around that we saw earlier in the demonstration. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger camera number 4. So this is the C-1 is the first note, or the first target, or target 0 in the array. So I'm going to go up to the 5th, or number 4 in the array. I hope that makes sense. To trigger the one that follows the random position actor. So I'm going to start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 should be the one that follows the little fly breakbeat red cool effect around. And then the other 4 I'm just going to trigger after that, so that it starts at 0, then number 1, 2, and 3. And then the top octave that we can use, which starts at 0, C0, just triggers camera shakes. So they're stored in here, and they're triggered in the camera director in anything within the range of note 24 through 25. So that will be starting at C0. We'll trigger these little shakes, and there are currently 5 of them, but you can of course add more later, and you can just copy one of these and then replace them with a new shake if you want. But these are the ones so far I've found these to be sufficient. So I'm going to use the same shake for each note. So I'm just going to use the second one in the array I want to use. I'm just going to use it at every beat. I'm going to have it trigger. I'm going to shut the blueprint down for now. So now we should be good to go. This should be it. So as you as you like add more cameras, you could use any kind of cine camera object. As long as it's a camera object, Camera Director will recognize it, and you'll be able to put it in the array here and switch between them. You could also do this live and you create like a pre-made clip like this and actually trigger cameras using some kind of MIDI controller or interface, which could be incredibly useful as well. You can use it in many different ways. So now this has been set up. We've got a little camera rig system here with lookout targets. We've got 2 cameras. So if I hit play now, it initializes on the first camera, and if I start going here, the cameras should start reacting to this clip. So I'm just going to trigger this whole scene, and let's see what happens. Awesome, that works. So yeah, that's the camera system. You can download it now. If you just replace the project, you'll be able to find, or if you download the project again now, you'll find this with the new level containing the whole sort of pre-installed camera system. And yeah, there's more stuff coming up. We're working on like a cool tunnel effect, which should be out very soon. And if there are any questions, please feel free to hit us up on the Discord. Yeah, that was it for now. Take it easy and talk to you soon. Bye.